Today's lesson is called Niagara Falls, a mighty wonder of nature. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff.
And my name is Helen.
Now, Niagara Falls, I don't believe that Niagara Falls are the biggest set of waterfalls in the world there. I believe that there are some bigger, grander falls in Africa, but still, Niagara Falls, hey, they're pretty good, pretty majestic. I actually saw Niagara Falls once, and it was worth the time. It is amazing to behold Niagara Falls.
Yes, I also saw it once, although it was very brief because I was only passing through. But it was truly a wonder of nature. It was something spectacular, something special to look at. Maybe each fall itself isn't so big, but here we're talking about a group of falls. So altogether, they make for a very impressive sight.
So there you go. You can have a waterfall, okay? Or you can have falls, a set of waterfalls, or maybe one big thing that looks like it's one waterfall when in fact it's many waterfalls all falling at the same time. Yeah, when I say that, I want to emphasize what a waterfall is, okay? Sometimes water flows downhill and it speeds up. Water flows over a cliff and it falls. It falls to the earth due to gravity. That would be a waterfall. The water has nowhere else to go, so it flows over the edge of something like a cliff. And sometimes in nature you can go out and see a waterfall. They're nice, okay? You can even, jump into them, let's say, and the pressure of the water isn't so much that it'll hurt you or anything like that. Yeah, you can have a good time playing in a waterfall. Well, Niagara Falls, it's not like that at all. Niagara Falls is a mighty wonder of nature. You wouldn't want to jump into Niagara Falls. That would be a big mistake. All right, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a break. But don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
Niagara Falls, a mighty wonder of nature. Spanning the border between Ontario, Canada, and the U.S. state of New York, Niagara Falls is made up of 3 cascades. Horseshoe Falls, the biggest and most powerful, sits on the Canadian side. The American Falls and Bridal Veil Falls are located on the U.S. side. The water that cascades over Niagara Falls originates from 4 of the 5 Great Lakes, making its way via the Niagara River to the Atlantic Ocean. As I first approached the Cascades from the Canadian side, the enormous force of the water crashing down and the loud noise it made stopped me in my tracks. I was immediately amazed by this wonder of nature.
大家好，第一部分我们看到动词 span 指横跨、跨越、持续一段时间，像是The bridge spans the river that divides the city. 这座桥横跨那条将城市一分为二的河，或是 The actor's career spanned several decades. 那位演员的职业生涯延续了好几十年。另外，这个字也可以是名词，指一段时间、期间、宽幅。我们可以说 The large stone castle was built over a span of about 50 years. 那座巨大的石造城堡已建成将近50年。或是 The bridge that will be built over the river will have a 300-meter span. 未来那座盖在河上的桥将会有300公尺宽。再来，我们看到单字 cascade 这个字是名词，意思是瀑布，常指瀑布群的分支，像是 During our family trip, we have seen several beautiful cascades in a scenic spot. 在我们家庭旅行期间，我们在风景区看到好多条美丽的瀑布。另外，这个字也可以当动词，意思是倾泻而下。举例来说 People travel from all over the world to see the Angel Falls cascading over the cliffs. 人们从世界各地而来，欣赏自悬崖倾泻而下的天使瀑布。接着我们看到介系词 via 指经由、凭借。例如 The town can only be reached via a mountain road. 那个小镇只能经由一条山路到达。或是A representative from our office will contact you via phone or email. 我们办公室的代表人员会透过电话或电子邮件联络你。再来，我们看到形容词 Atlantic 指大西洋的，像是 The Atlantic Ocean 就是大西洋，像是 Nick's dream is to be able to sail across the Atlantic Ocean one day. Nick 的梦想是有一天能航行跨越大西洋。接下来我们看到一个单字 amazed， 这个字是形容词，指十分惊奇的，感到惊愕的，之后接 at or by 加名词，像是 I was amazed by the fact that a 5-year-old knew how to do long division. 一个5岁小孩会算长除法这件事让我感到惊讶。或是 We were all amazed at how well she played the piano. 我们都对她弹钢琴的功力惊叹不已。
And welcome back. So today we're talking about Niagara Falls, a mighty wonder of nature. So there are many wonders of nature. There are mountains, lakes, islands, forests that are beautiful, that are produced by nature, that have become tourist attractions. And here we're talking about waterfalls, Niagara Falls to be specific. Now here in the first sentence, we're going to talk about what Niagara Falls actually looks like, where it's located. It says here, spanning the border between Ontario, Canada, and the U.S. state of New York, Niagara Falls is made up of 3 cascades. So Niagara Falls takes up a large chunk of space. It's on the border between 2 countries. More specifically, it's right on the border between Ontario, which is a province in Canada, and the state of New York in the United States. So it's sitting right in between these 2 areas. And when we talk about Niagara Falls, we're talking about the 3 cascades or the 3 falls that make up Niagara Falls.
Now, when I went to Niagara Falls, what I remember is seeing this huge waterfall. It looked like one big thing to me from where I was standing. But that's not exactly true, okay? Niagara Falls here apparently is made up of 3 cascades. Now, what is a cascade? A cascade is kind of like a waterfall, but usually you've got many waterfalls in one place, and they're all falling in different stages and at different times in that one area. Basically, we're talking about a complex of waterfalls in one particular place. That's what a cascade would be, and Niagara Falls is 3 cascades in one.
Right. Specifically, we have Horseshoe Falls. That's the biggest and most powerful waterfall, and it sits on the Canadian side. So Horseshoe Falls is in Canada. And then you have 2 other falls, the American Falls and Bridal Veil Falls, and both of these are located on the U.S. side. Specifically, they're located in New York, in the state of New York.
So there you go. And this spans the border, okay? So in this area, from the beginning to the end, you'll find these falls. It spans this entire area, this border area between Ontario and New York State. Anyways, Niagara Falls, it's a complex of many smaller waterfalls all put together, and you can say that it's made up of 3 cascades. Now, I have used this word small a few times. Well, if you take enough of these small waterfalls and you put them all together, what adds up or what you get there is something definitely mighty, okay? When you see pictures of Niagara Falls, it looks big, okay? It looks impressive. But when you actually approach Niagara Falls, you get an idea of just how mighty it is. One of the things you won't expect is just how loud it is. I have a really hard time expressing right now just how impressed I was with how mighty Niagara Falls was. It was loud. Oh my goodness, I'll never forget that sound for as long as I live.
Right, and that sound is made from the water that cascading over the cliffs. So before we use cascade as a noun to refer to a small waterfall. You can call that a cascade. But cascade can also be used as a verb. So here it says the water that cascades over. In other words, the water that flows down in large amounts. The water that cascades over Niagara Falls originates from 4 of the 5 Great Lakes, making its way via the Niagara River to the Atlantic Ocean. So here we're looking at where the water actually comes from, the water that falls, cascades over Niagara Falls, and where that water ends up. So we find out that the water actually comes from 4 of the 5 Great Lakes. So in the United States, we have a group of lakes called the Great Lakes, and they are in Michigan.
Partially, yep. You've got Lake Superior and Lake Michigan. Okay, then Lake Huron, I believe, followed by Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. And I actually lived in Chicago for a while, next to Lake Michigan there. It's a beautiful lake, but in the winter, boy, does the wind just come howling off that lake. Boy, is it ever cold.
Right. So the Niagara Falls, or the water that flows down Niagara Falls, comes from 4 of these 5 Great Lakes, which are located in the northern part of the United States. And then it makes its way via the Niagara River to the Atlantic Ocean. That's the last destination. All of that water flows into the Atlantic Ocean. So here, the word via means going through a place as you get from point A to point B. So I could say, for instance, I arrived on the other side of the mountain via a tunnel. I went through a tunnel to get from one side of the mountain to the other. And just a word here about the phrase originate from means to begin to exist for the first time. So I could say something like potatoes originate from South America.
Anyways, let's go ahead and read on. Earlier I said that, when I get close to Niagara Falls, it was extremely impressive. It's a very, very powerful waterfall there. The sound of it, oh my goodness, it's almost deafening. Anyways, the author of our article here had a similar experience. This person writes, as I first approached the Cascades from the Canadian side, the enormous force of the water crashing down and the loud noise it made stopped me in my tracks. And yes, this is exactly what happened to me as well. I was kind of afraid to approach the falls. They were just that mighty and that powerful and that loud.
Yes, and if you approach the falls on foot, if you're walking from Canada to New York, from Ontario to New York, which is possible to do because you can cross to New York via a bridge, then that sound of the waterfall is even more intense. It's even louder. So the full effect of Niagara Falls can be felt if you're walking rather than crossing the border in a car. So according to the traveler who wrote this article, crossing was done from Canada to the United States. And here the word approach means to move closer to something or someone. So I could say, for instance, I approached the street cat slowly and gently so as not to scare it. I went towards the cat very slowly so that I don't scare the cat. And the other word in the sentence, enormous, simply means something that is very big, very large in either size or in quantity. For instance, there was an enormous earthquake last month. I felt it in my sleep. I was woken up by it because it was so enormous. So enormous here refers to the force of the water crashing down. The water was coming down with such speed that it made a loud noise, crashing noise.
Yes, when this happens, boy, does Niagara Falls ever make a racket. It makes enough of a racket, enough of a sound there that it will stop you in your tracks, i.e., you will feel compelled to stop walking, okay? I had a hard time approaching the falls any further just because they were that powerful, okay? You can really, really feel it when you're there in person.
That's right. So when you're there, in fact, I was there, and I was there not in a car. I was standing on one of the bridges looking at the falls, and the sound that the falls made crashing down really did stop me in my tracks when I was walking over the bridge. It was that loud, it was that dramatic, and it's a wonder of nature in that sense as well.
So I was immediately amazed by this wonder of nature, writes our author, and I have to agree, I was also very surprised. All right, folks, with that, it is time for us to take a short break. But don't go away. When we come back, we'll talk about entering the United States on foot. See you then.
Entering the United States on foot. The border between Canada and the United States runs along the middle of the Niagara River, and to cross it, many people like to take the Rainbow Bridge. Walking across this bridge was a cool experience because at the point marking the border, you'll see the Canadian and U.S. flags. Lots of people stop here to take selfies as they stand between the two countries. After I went through immigration at the U.S. border, I proceeded on my way to the United States.
第二部分我们看到名词 selfie 指自拍照，像是 take selfies 就是自拍，拍自拍照。例如 Claire took a selfie yesterday and sent it to her mother. Claire 昨天拍了一张自拍传给妈妈。最后我们看到一个单字 immigration， 这个字是名词，指移民局入境检查处，移民，像是 go through immigration 就表示通过入境检查。举例来说Donna had to answer several questions when she was going through immigration at the airport. Donna 在机场通过入境处时必须回答好几个问题。
And welcome back. So Niagara Falls, since it spans two countries, even though the countries are very friendly towards each other, there's still a border, there's still immigration that you have to go through. So now we're going to look at entering the United States from Canada on foot. When you do that, you still have to go through the proper channels of immigration. And it says here, the border between Canada and the United States runs along the middle of the Niagara River, and to cross it, many people like to take the Rainbow Bridge. There are several bridges, but Rainbow Bridge evidently is the most popular, maybe because it has the best view or because it has other attractions. Now it says here, walking across this bridge was a cool experience because at the point marking the border, you'll see the Canadian and U.S. flags. That's interesting.
Yeah, lots of people stop here to take selfies as they stand between the two countries. On one side, you've got Canada, and the other, you've got America there, and you've got the flags to show it. One side, you've got the Canadian flag. The other, you've got the flag for the United States. And yes, this is a great place to take a selfie. By the way, if you do take a selfie, you take a picture of yourself by yourself. Now, you can't take selfies with other people, but you know what? I don't call that a true selfie, okay? If you take a selfie, you extend your arm with your phone in it, and you take a picture of yourself, hence selfie.
Right. So a lot of people will stop at the border, exactly where the Canadian U.S. flags meet, take a selfie, and then go through immigration. So here the writer says, after I went through immigration at the U.S. border, I proceeded on my way to the United States. So after the writer went through immigration, which is the place where you show your passport so that you can enter the country, and the officer makes sure that you're okay, you have no criminal records, etc., you can enter the United States. And here, the writer says, I proceeded on my way to the United States. Proceed here means to go in a particular direction, to make your way towards a place. I could also say, I proceeded to the cashier to pay for my grocery items, for instance, if I'm in a supermarket.
Anyways, this is pretty cool. You can enter the United States on foot. You do still have to go through customs or immigration, but that's pretty interesting. I know that in Mexico, you can enter Mexico by foot as well, but otherwise, usually when you're entering another country, you do so by way of airplane or by way of car or something like that. So here's a pretty interesting novelty. For any of you who want to visit Niagara Falls, go ahead and go for the falls, and also stay for unique experiences like this, entering the United States on foot. All right, folks, with that, it is time for us to take a break. But don't worry, don't fret. The Chinese teacher is waiting in the wings.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny， 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始写到尼加拉大瀑布呢是由3个瀑布分支组成，那这边它是用到 A be made up of B 的句型来表达 A 是由 B 组成。那这边我们就来帮同学们整理片语动词 make up 的用法。好，第一个就是表达组成构成，那它有分成主动和被动2种用法。我们先来看第一种主动用法呢，是用部分加上 make up 加上整体，例如 numerous islands make up the country， 许多岛屿构成了那个国家。那么被动用法呢是 整体加上 be made up of 加上部分。刚刚例句就可以把它改成 The country is made up of numerous islands. 那个国家是由许多岛屿组成的。好。Make up 的第二个用法是表达编造、虚构，像是编造某个故事啊，编造某个谎言等等。那 make up 当这个意思来解释时是及物用法，例如 The story wasn't real, he made it up. 那个故事不是真的，是他编造的。好，那么第三个用法是表达凑足、补齐，也可以表达弥补、补偿什么的缺失不足等等。那我们可以用 make up for something 来表达补偿什么什么，弥补什么。例如 He tried to make up for his weaknesses by working extra hard. 为了弥补自己的不足，他试着更加的努力。那么第四个用法，我们可以用 make up 来表达在争执之后和好啊，重修旧好。那么 make up 当这个意思来解释时，它是不及物用法。例如He made up with his girlfriend yesterday. 他昨天跟女朋友和好了。好，读到课文最后一句，作者说他在美国边境通过入境检查之后，就继续前行进入美国。那边用到单字 immigration， 它是指移民局入境检查或是入境检查处，那它也有移民的意思。那我们顺便来整理相关的字根还有词性。好，首先 migrate。M-I-G-R-A-T-E 这个字根呢，它有移动、迁徙的意思。它当动词可以指迁徙、迁移、移居，那么也可以用来表达这个动物它随季节迁徙。好，在 migrate 前面加上字首 I am 就会得到 immigrate。好，这个字首 I am 是来自 in 来表示 into 进入的意思，所以 immigrate 就表示移入，从外地迁入。这个字呢，它是在强调移入新国家，在那边生活。那如果在 migrate 前面加上字首 e 会得到emigrate。 好，那么这个字首 e 是来自 ex 表示向外，所以 emigrate 就表示移出，从本地迁出，那这个字是在强调离开原本的国家。好，接着来看 migrate 的名词是 migration 表示迁徙移居，而 migrant M-I-G-R-A-N-T 则是表达像是可能为了工作而移居的移民啊、移居者，也可以表达迁徙动物。我们在 migration 和 migrant 这两个单字的前方呢，也可以加上字首 I-M 或者是 E。那接着我们就会得到 immigration 是移民入境， emigration 是移居、移民出境，还有 immigrant 是从外地迁入的移民， emigrant 则是从本地迁出移居他国的移民。好，那么以上今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Via. This flight takes us to the United Kingdom via Hong Kong. Approach. I tried to approach the cat, but it got frightened and ran away. Enormous. The concert was held in an enormous stadium that can hold up to 10,000 people. Crash. A vase crashed to the floor when Devin bumped the table. Amazed. Ellie was amazed at the beauty of the statue, so she stopped to take a picture of it. Immigration. The long line at immigration caused me to be late for my business meeting. Proceed. All passengers for Amsterdam should now proceed to Gate 4.
Well, this is the end of our program. We hope you had a great time with us today. Hope you can join us again. From all of us here, I'm Helen.
I'm Jeff. See you next time.